And we want you to know, only as high as you reach can you grow. Only as far as you seek can you go. Only as deep as you look can you see. Only as much as you dream can you be. Proudly submitted by Mr. Darren Washington, President of the Board of School Trustees, and Dr. Cheryl L. Pruitt, Superintendent of the Gary Community Schools. Now that proud principal is here, Dr. Adrian Ritchie. Will you please come forward as well? And we're going to hear from you after we hear the winning speech.
Thank you, Ms. Griffin. Education, a powerful weapon for peace. Over the years, many profound philosophers and leaders ranging from President Barack Obama to the Dalai Lama have sought peace, both inner and outer, through way of education, and have expounded in great detail on their connections. But I think Maya Angelou best abridged the link between education and peace with her concise statement, "When you know better, you do better." I'm sure that many of you can recall having unintentionally committed a no-no as an impressionable young child, such as cursing for the first time, writing on the wall, or taking candy or a toy out of the store without paying. At the time, you didn't know any better was a viable defense on your behalf, which more than likely got you off the hook with a warning. No harm, no foul, right? Well, if no lessons had been learned from those minor infractions, then innocent ignorance would have been left to escalate, becoming dangerous grounds for reckless injustices. There are but three main applications to which education should be: to help you become a more applicable member of society, to counteract others who are of ignorance and ill intentions, and to share your knowledge in order to attain widespread peace. While it is true that we do live in a liberal and free society, civilization as a whole benefits best by upholding general standards for ethics and fostering a mutual understanding of morality. Without these social aims and ideals, the world would degenerate into anarchy and calamity, the opposites of peace. Even the late great pioneer of peace, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. once said, "There is nothing in all the world more dangerous than sincere ignorance and conscientious stupidity. You have a moral obligation to be intelligent." One's lack of education does not constitute their negative actions. For instance, imagine the ridiculousness of someone saying, "I beat up that homosexual because my church and parents say that being gay is the devil. They've instilled those views in me and that's all I've ever been exposed to. I didn't know any better." Or, "I don't know the difference between Muslims, Indians, Arabs, or none of that mess because I believe in God. All I know is I seen that man walk up in the train with a towel thing wrapped around his head looking like Osama bin Laden. So naturally, I shot him. I ain't know no better." Though these people would still reap the just ramifications for their wrongdoing, had they not been miseducated or known better, maybe they would have done better. Education promotes cross-cultural understanding, tolerance, inclusion, and empathy. These skills are apt to shape you into an amiable citizen, initiating the first phase in achieving peace. Once you've learned how to exhibit peace, your education should help you avoid and counteract those who have none, or use it for naught. The ancient Chinese military general and creator of the art of war, Sun Tzu, wrote, "The reason the enlightened prince and the wise general conquer the enemy whenever they move, and their achievements surpass those of ordinary men, is foreknowledge." In order to peacefully sustain your own activities, you must know what your neighbor knows and then some. Knowledge is a powerful weapon, and even though it can be a beacon of light shining towards peace, in the wrong hands, it is a diabolical tool for tyranny to be apprehensive of. This is evident throughout history. The more intellectually advanced civilizations have always maintained the upper hand over those left in the dark. When Europeans came to the Americas, they learned geography, agriculture, and how to live in general in the New World from the natives. The settlers took their newfound knowledge, made it their own, used it against the natives, and the rest is history. If only the natives had known better. But the plight of the African American isn't exempt from the same practice of the principle of deceit either. For instance, the Willie Lynch letter, The Making of a Slave, a speech given by West Indies slave plantation owner William Lynch in 1712 on the bank of the James River in the colony of Virginia, was an educational guideline to break the minds of the blacks in order to control them. It states, I have a foolproof method for controlling your black slaves. I guarantee every one of you that if installed correctly, it will control the slaves for at least 300 years. I have outlined a number of differences among the slaves, and I take these differences and make them bigger. I use fear, distrust, and envy for control purposes. There is intelligence, size, sex, sizes of plantations, status on plantations, attitude of owners, whether the slaves live in the valley, on a hill, east, west, north, south, have fine hair, coarse hair, or is tall or short. The black slaves, after receiving this indoctrination, shall carry on and will become self-refueling and self-generating for hundreds of years, maybe thousands. Don't forget, you must pitch the old black male versus the young black male, and the young black male against the old black male. You must use the dark-skinned slaves versus the light-skinned slaves, and the light-skinned slaves against the dark-skinned slaves. You must use the female versus the male, and the male versus the female. Whereas nature provides them with the natural capacity to take care of their offspring, we break that natural string of independence from them and thereby create a dependency status so that we may be able to get from them useful production for our business and pleasure. If you take a slave, if you teach him all about your language, he will know all your secrets, and he is then no more a slave, for you can't fool him any longer. And being a fool is one of the basic ingredients of any incidents to the maintenance of the slavery system. Keep the body, take the mind. This excerpt exemplifies how monitoring and controlling education is pivotal in creating turmoil for the slave, but peace for the slave owner. The effects of some of these methods are still prevalent today. Even after slavery and segregation have long been abolished, these conundrums still rattle the black community in some resonance. But I digress. People in general are often taken advantage of because they don't know as much as the next person, and that causes rifts between parties, which is why education is an essential weapon in the fight for peace. After you know what it takes to deter aggressors, but at the same time not being one yourself, it's time to share that education to eternalize a legacy of peace. No cause can be effective without constant perpetuation. Though it couldn't hurt to try and target the world in its entirety, it may not be as efficient as focusing the attention on a smaller demographic. Mohandas Mahatma Gandhi philosophized, if we are to teach real peace in this world, and if we are to carry on a real war against war, we shall have to begin with the children. This statement couldn't be any truer because even though it would be ideal to reach the older generations governing the world at this time, they are generally far less prone to change their ways. When it comes to the children of the world, with their impressionable natures, they can be educated through proper education to be disposed to peaceful behavioral habits. Then those children will grow into the controlling men and women, strengthening communities and raising their children based on the very same premises. The children are indeed the future. With so much knowledge being easily accessible in the 21st century, aside from being coined as the computer age, we should be known as the age of peace. We have the opportunities to embody peace, defend ourselves against its adversaries, and act as ambassadors of peace, communicating it between individuals, nations, and generations. Proficiency in the amalgamation of these skills through education could potentially lead to absolute peace. Regardless of whether we ever achieve total peace, education is our most powerful weapon for it. Thank you.